Jackson Cole heard the scraping sound first. Bare feet on frozen gravel, moving fast, desperate. Midnight in the Colorado Rockies, 12 degrees below zero, and an 8-year-old girl in purple pajamas was running toward his roadhouse with blood on her soles and terror in her eyes. She collapsed against his leg, held up something silver clutched in her fist, a medical alert bracelet.
"Mommy's in the box,"
Maya Rodriguez whispered.
"He locked her in the freezer in the mountains, and she's diabetic, and she's dying. And nobody helped us, and you're the only lights I could find."
What the Iron Brotherhood discovered in those frozen mountains would expose a killer who'd done this before. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Maya's story reaches. Now, stay with us until the very end, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about who the real protectors are. The girl shouldn't have been alive. Jackson Ryder Cole was locking the front door of Iron Brotherhood's roadhouse when he heard it, the crunch, scrape, stumble of small feet on ice. He turned, expecting a stray dog, or maybe a drunk who'd wandered off from the main highway 12 miles south. Instead, he found a child. 8 years old, maybe 9, purple fleece pajamas soaked black with melted snow, bare feet leaving small red prints across the parking lot. Dark hair frozen to her skull in chunks, shaking so hard her teeth made clicking sounds, and running straight at him like he was the only thing in the world that mattered. Ryder dropped to one knee before she reached him, made himself smaller. 6'4", 260 pounds of muscle and scar tissue and leather. He knew what he looked like. Knew why mothers crossed the street when they saw him coming. But this little girl didn't hesitate. She slammed into him, grabbed his vest with frozen fingers, looked up with brown eyes that held more fear than any child should ever know.
"Please,"
her voice came out in white vapor clouds.
"Please, you have to help. Mommy's in the box."
Ryder caught her before she collapsed. Hey, I've got you. You're safe now." He pulled off his thermal jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders. "What's your name, sweetheart?"
Maya Rodriguez."
Her whole body convulsed with shivering.
"I'm 8. My stepfather locked my mom in a freezer chest in the old mining territory, and she's going to die. And I ran, and you're the only place with lights on, and please—"
"Slow down." Ryder kept his voice gentle, despite the ice flooding his veins. "How far did you run?"
3.1 miles.
Maya's teeth chattered so hard she could barely speak.
"I counted the markers. Mommy taught me how to navigate in case of emergency. She said—"
Her voice broke completely. "She said emergencies mean you have to be smart, not scared." Ryder looked at her feet. Blue-gray toes, frostbite forming. Looked at what she clutched in her fist, a silver medical alert bracelet with Elena Rodriguez, type 1 diabetic, engraved on the front. He turned it over. On the back, scratched deep into the metal with something sharp. SOS 39.7891 minus 105.5621. Derek did this. GPS coordinates. A name. A dying woman's final message. "When did he lock her in?" Ryder asked quietly. 5:47 p.m. Maya opened her small fist completely, revealing the bracelet. "I heard them fighting in the garage. He said, 'Get in the truck, Elena. We're going for a drive.' She said, 'I don't want to go.' He said, 'You don't have a choice.' Then I heard the truck leave. I found this in the driveway at 6:19 when I snuck out to look. She never takes it off. Never. She threw it so I'd know where she was going, so I'd tell someone." Ryder did the math. 5:47 p.m. to midnight. 6 hours, 13 minutes. Is your mom sick? She's diabetic, type 1. She needs insulin every 4 hours or she goes into ketoacidosis. And it's 12 degrees outside. Maya's voice went eerily steady, reciting horror she'd memorized. Hypothermia takes 6 to 8 hours in freezing temperatures. She's been out there 6 hours and 13 minutes. Maybe she has 2 hours left. Maybe less. The roadhouse door opened behind them. Track stepped out, Iron Brotherhood's sergeant-at-arms, former Army Ranger medic. Ryder, what's... He saw the child, saw her feet, saw her face. Jesus Christ. Get the emergency kit, Ryder said. Thermal blankets, lukewarm water, and call V-Rex. Tell him we've got a mother locked in a freezer chest in the mountains, diabetic, hypothermia timeline, and an 8-year-old who just ran 3 miles barefoot to ask for help. Track was already moving. Ryder scooped Maya up, carried her inside. She weighed maybe 60 pounds, frozen straight through. He set her gently on the bar top. Track returned with blankets, wrapped them around her, checked her feet with hands that had treated combat wounds in Kandahar. Frostbite on 8 toes, Track said quietly. We need to warm her slowly, or we'll do more damage. He filled a basin with lukewarm water, placed Maya's feet in it. She whimpered, bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. I know it hurts, Track said, but you're doing so good. Your mom's going to be so proud of how brave you are. Will she be alive to be proud? Maya's voice was tiny. Ryder knelt in front of her. Yes, because every single brother in this club is going to find her. You hear me? We don't leave people behind. Maya stared at him for 3 seconds, then pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pajama pocket. I drew a map. Mommy taught me how to read topographic maps. The old Black Hawk mining territory, northeast quadrant. There's a maintenance road off Highway 72. Big pine tree split by lightning. Creek runs parallel. The freezer chest is 40 feet from the creek bed. Ryder unfolded the paper. Crayon drawing, roads, landmarks, trees, water, X marking a spot. A child's map that might save her mother's life. Maya, he said slowly, how did you know to come here? Mommy said if anything bad ever happened, if Derek ever hurt us, find the bikers. She said bikers protect people nobody else cares about. She said you're scary on the outside, but you're the only ones who actually help. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Was she right? Ryder felt something crack in his chest, felt his sister's face flash through his mind. Amanda, beaten to death by her husband 9 years ago, while neighbors heard and did nothing. Felt the rage and grief he carried every single day, the reason he volunteered at the women's shelter every Tuesday, the reason he'd promised himself no one else would die if he could prevent it. She was right. Ryder's voice came out rough. And we're going to prove it. His phone buzzed. V-Rex, club president, 63 years old, gray beard to his chest, voice like rolling thunder. What's the emergency? 8-year-old just ran 3 miles barefoot through sub-zero temps to report her diabetic mother's been locked in an industrial freezer in the Black Hawk mining territory since 5:47 p.m. Mother's been without insulin for 6 hours plus. Hypothermia timeline puts her at maybe 2 hours max before cardiac arrest. Stepfather's planning to report her missing tomorrow morning, claims she wandered off during an argument, collect life insurance. Silence. Then, how reliable is the witness? She's 8 years old, and she ran 3 miles in bare feet with frostbite forming. She's got her mother's medical alert bracelet with GPS coordinates scratched into it. She drew us a map. Track's treating her right now for exposure. Ryder paused. V-Rex, she said her mom told her to find bikers because we're the only ones who actually help. We're coming. Every brother within 75 miles. How many do we need? All of them. 23 minutes later, the parking lot sounded like rolling thunder. Motorcycles poured in from every direction. Denver chapter, Golden, Boulder, Fort Collins. Engines cutting off one by one until the only sound was boots on gravel and leather creaking. And 60 men filling the roadhouse in silence. V-Rex walked straight to Maya, still wrapped in thermal blankets on the bar. He knelt like Ryder had, made himself small. Maya, my name is Victor. Everyone calls me V-Rex. I'm the president of this club. His voice was surprisingly gentle. That means when I say something's going to happen, it happens. You understand? Maya nodded. We're going to find your mother. We're going to bring her home alive. And we're going to make sure the man who hurt her never touches either of you again. He paused. Can you be brave a little longer?
How much longer?
However long it takes, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3, but we don't stop until she's safe. Maya looked around at 60 massive bikers in leather vests, all watching her with expressions that were somehow both terrifying and tender.
My mommy's diabetic. If she doesn't get insulin soon, she'll go into a coma. And it's so cold out there. What if we're too late?
Then we make sure Derek Bancroft faces murder charges instead of attempted murder charges, V-Rex said flatly. But we're not going to be too late. You know why?
Why?
Because you ran 3 miles barefoot through freezing temperatures to save her. That kind of love doesn't end with failure. That kind of love moves mountains. He stood, turned to face the assembled brothers. All right, listen up. We've got a mother locked in a freezer chest in the old Black Hawk mining territory. She's diabetic, been without insulin for 6 hours, suffering from hypothermia. We've got maybe 2 hours before this becomes a recovery operation instead of a rescue. He held up Maya's crayon map. We're splitting into 8 teams of 7 to 8 riders each. Military grid pattern. Every acre gets covered. We find that chest, we document everything we see, and we hand it to authorities who will actually prosecute. Clear? Clear! Reaper! V-Rex pointed to a lean brother with a laptop bag. Pull everything you can on Derek Bancroft. I want to know who he is, what he does, and whether he's done this before. Already on it, Reaper called back, fingers flying across his keyboard. V-Rex turned back to Maya. Sweetheart, I need you to tell me everything you know about Derek. Everything. Maya took a shaking breath. Then she started talking.
His full name is Derek William Bancroft. He's 39 years old. He owns Bancroft Construction. They build commercial buildings in Denver. He's on the city council. He volunteers at the food bank.
Everyone thinks he's a good guy. But he's not, Ryder said quietly.
No.
Maya's voice went hollow.
He married Mommy 19 months ago, after my real daddy died in a car accident. Mommy was sad, and Derek was nice at first. He bought me toys, took us to dinner, said he'd take care of us forever.
What changed?
Everything.
Maya's hands twisted in the thermal blanket.
He moved us to Black Hawk Ridge, away from Mommy's family. Took her phone away. Said she didn't need one because he could call for her. Broke her car. Said it was too expensive to fix. Took all her money from Daddy's life insurance. Said he was investing it, but really he was gambling. I saw the statements in his office.
Track handed her warm water. She sipped it, continued.
Mommy tried to leave in October. She packed our bags while Derek was at work. But he came home early. He dragged her into the bedroom. I heard her screaming. I called 911, but when the police came, Derek said everything was fine.
The officer talked to Mommy alone in the kitchen, but Derek was standing right there in the doorway watching her. She said she was okay. She had to say that. Ryder felt rage build behind his sternum. Did you tell anyone else? I told my school counselor 6 weeks ago, Mrs. Patterson. I said, my stepdad hurt my mommy. She called CPS. A lady came to our house. Her name was Jennifer. She asked Mommy if anyone was hurting her. Mommy said no. Jennifer asked if she felt safe. Mommy said yes. Maya's voice cracked. But her hands were shaking the whole time, and Derek was sitting right there on the couch, smiling. What did the CPS investigator do? She closed the case, said there was no evidence of abuse, told Mommy to call if she ever needed help. Then she left. The Rex's jaw clenched. How many times did the system fail you? Maya counted on her fingers. Police didn't help. CPS didn't help. The judge didn't help when Mommy tried to get a protection order, said she needed proof of physical harm. The hospital didn't help when Mommy fell down the stairs and Derek said she tripped 4 times. They all believed him because he's important, and Mommy's just... She couldn't finish. Just what? Ryder asked gently. Just a divorced mom with a dead husband and a daughter and no money and nobody who cares. Maya started crying. Except she does have people who care. She has me. And now she has you, right? Ryder pulled her into his arms. This tiny, frozen, barefoot warrior who'd run through hell to save her mother. Right. And we're not going to fail her. Reaper stood up, laptop in hand. The Rex, we've got a problem. The room went silent. Derek Bancroft's not a first-timer, Reaper said quietly. He was married before Elena. Wife's name was Lauren Christine Bancroft. Died January 2018. 7 years ago this month. Drowned in Cherry Creek Reservoir when her car went through the ice. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Life insurance payout? V-Rex asked. $220,000. Reaper turned the laptop around, showed the screen. Policy was $50,000 for the first 4 years of their marriage. Then, 8 weeks before Lauren died, Derek increased it to $220,000. Same pattern as Elena. Her policy's $650,000. Derek increased it from $100,000 to $650,000 just 4 months ago. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. There's more, Reaper continued. Lauren's mother filed a suspicious death report with Aurora police 3 days after the drowning. Claimed Lauren was planning to divorce Derek. Claimed Lauren was afraid of him. Investigation concluded Lauren's car showed brake line corrosion. Could be sabotage. Could be wear and tear. Accident reconstruction noted she was accelerating before hitting the ice, not braking. But Derek had an alibi. Poker game with business associates. All confirmed. Case closed as accidental death. Maya made a small sound. Everyone looked at her. Thursday night, she whispered. I couldn't sleep. I heard Derek on the phone in the garage. I crept downstairs and listened through the door. He said, "It's happening Saturday. Weather's perfect. Storm coming. Temperature drops below 0 overnight. I'll put her in the freezer around 6, drive her to the spot, lock it. By Sunday morning when I discover she's missing, she'll already be gone. Hypothermia plus insulin deprivation equals death in 6 to 8 hours. Then it's just waiting. Maybe she's found in spring, maybe never. Either way, it's ruled exposure, accidental death. I'm the grieving widower." The room was dead silent. Then he said, Maya's voice broke. He said, "Yeah, $650 from the policy, plus the $73,000 left from her money."
Over 700,000 total.
Split 2 ways like we agreed. Then you and me, baby, were gone. New life in Arizona. Who was he talking to? V-Rex asked.
Her name's Sienna. I heard him say it. I love you, Sienna. This time next week we'll be free.
Maya looked up at Ryder with eyes too old for 8 years.
Then he said the worst part. He said, just like with Lauren, nobody questioned that one. Nobody will question this.
Ryder felt his hands curl into fists. Derek Bancroft had killed his first wife 7 years ago, gotten away with it. And now he was trying to kill his second wife the exact same way. For money. For a mistress. For a new life built on murder. Where's Derek right now? V-Rex asked Maya.
Home? At least he was when I left. He thinks I'm asleep. Thinks Mommy's dying in the mountains. Thinks everything's going according to plan.
V-Rex's smile was terrible. Then let's make sure his plan falls apart in the worst possible way. He turned to the brothers. Mount up. We're burning moonlight, and Elena Rodriguez doesn't have time for us to waste another second. 60 men moved as one toward the door. Ryder, V-Rex called. You're with me. Bring Maya's map. Ryder looked down at the little girl wrapped in his jacket. You stay here with Track and Doc Patricia. They'll take care of you.
You promise you'll find her?
Maya's voice was so small. I promise. Ryder pulled a worn leather wallet from his vest, opened it, showed her a photo. A young woman with kind eyes and a bright smile. This was my sister Amanda. 9 years ago, her husband beat her to death. The police had been called 14 times. Neighbors heard her screaming. Nobody helped. Nobody stopped him. I lost her because the system failed. He closed the wallet, met Maya's eyes. I'm not losing your mother too. That's not a promise I make lightly. That's a promise I keep. Maya reached into her pajama pocket one more time, pulled out a small plastic figurine, Spider-Man, paint-chipped, well-loved.
Mommy gave me this when Daddy died. She said Spider-Man protects people. That's what heroes do. She pressed it into Ryder's palm. You take it for luck. Bring her home.
Ryder closed his fist around the toy, felt its weight like a sacred trust. I'll give it back when your mom's safe. Deal?
Deal.
Then he was running for his Harley, V-Rex beside him, 60 brothers mounting up behind them. The sound of 156 engines roaring to life filled the Colorado night, like the promise of justice rolling down from the mountains. And somewhere in the frozen darkness, Elena Rodriguez held on for one more hour, one more breath, one more heartbeat. Held on because her daughter was brave enough to run. Held on because bikers were coming. Held on because sometimes the most powerless person in the world finds the strongest family. The convoy pulled out at 12:47 a.m., leaving Maya safe with Track and Doc Patricia, leaving the roadhouse lights on like a beacon. Heading into the mountains where a mother fought to survive and a killer thought he'd won. But Derek Bancroft had made one fatal miscalculation. He'd forgotten that some children refuse to be silent, and some families refuse to let evil win. The convoy hit Highway 72 at 70 miles per hour, 156 motorcycles moving in tight formation through frozen Colorado darkness. Ryder led the front wedge beside V-Rex, Maya's crayon map tucked inside his vest next to the Spider-Man figurine. Behind them, headlights stretched back half a mile. Denver Chapter, Boulder, Golden, Fort Collins, every brother who could ride had come. Ryder's phone buzzed against his chest. He pulled it out, read the text from Track. Maya's stable, feet warming. She's asking if you found her mom yet. What do I tell her? Ryder typed back with one hand while steering with the other. Tell her we're close. Tell her to hold on. But they weren't close. They were burning through minutes Elena Rodriguez didn't have, racing toward coordinates that might be wrong, searching for a freezer chest in thousands of acres of abandoned mining territory in the middle of the night with temperatures dropping to 8 below zero. V-Rex's voice crackled through the helmet radio. Teams, we're 2 minutes out from the access road. Formation tightens. Nobody separates more than visual distance. We don't lose anybody tonight. Copy, came back in 8 different voices. The turnoff appeared, a rutted dirt road barely visible between snowbanks. V-Rex's hand went up, signaling the slow. The convoy reduced speed, engines growling lower, and turned onto the access road that led into Black Hawk mining territory. Trees closed in on both sides, branches heavy with snow, shadows thick enough to hide anything. Ryder's mind went to Amanda, to the night he'd gotten the call 9 years ago, to arriving at her house and finding police tape and his sister's body under a sheet, and her husband crying convincing tears for the cameras. To the detective who'd said, domestic situation that escalated, tragic accident. To the 14 prior police calls that went nowhere because Amanda always said she was fine, always protected the man who was killing her. He wasn't going to let that happen again. The convoy stopped at a clearing 1.5 miles into the territory. V-Rex killed his engine. 60 men followed suit. Sudden silence, except for wind through pines and the tick, tick, tick of cooling metal. V-Rex climbed onto a fallen log so everyone could see him. All right, listen close. We've got approximately 8 square miles to cover based on Maya's map. Elena Rodriguez has been locked in a freezer chest for 7 hours 14 minutes. She's diabetic, hasn't had insulin since before 6 p.m., and she's suffering hypothermia. Every minute we waste is a minute she doesn't have. He pulled out Maya's drawing, held it up. Big pine split by lightning, creek running parallel to the maintenance road, freezer chest 40 feet from the creek bed, teams of 8, 50-yard spacing, grid pattern. You see anything, disturbed snow, tire tracks, drag marks, anything, you radio immediately. We document everything because when we hand Derek Bancroft to the FBI, it's going to be airtight. What about the stepfather? A voice called from the back. Younger brother, maybe 35, Patch reading Gunner. Derek Bancroft is sitting in his house right now thinking his wife is dying and his stepdaughter is asleep, V-Rex said coldly. He doesn't know Maya escaped. Doesn't know we're coming. By the time he figures it out, Elena's going to be safe and he's going to be in handcuffs. And if she's already dead? Someone else asked quietly. V-Rex's face went hard. Then we make damn sure he never sees daylight again. Ryder's phone buzzed again. Reaper, back at the roadhouse with his laptop. Found Derek's mistress. Sienna Marks, 35, interior designer, works at Bancroft Construction. They've been seeing each other for 11 months. I'm in her cloud storage. She's sloppy with passwords. Found text messages. Sending screenshots now. The phone screen lit up with forwarded images. Ryder's stomach turned as he read. January 10th, 11:47 p.m. Sienna to Derek. Can't wait for Monday. New life, here we come. January 13th, 6:23 p.m. Derek to Sienna. Everything's set. Storm hits tomorrow night. She won't last till Sunday morning. January 17th, 4:18 p.m. Sienna to Derek. You sure this will work? Derek to Sienna. Worked with Lauren. Nobody questioned that one. Nobody will question this. Trust me, baby. This time next week, we're in Scottsdale. Ryder showed the screen to V-Rex. The president's jaw clenched so hard Ryder heard teeth grinding. Reaper, V-Rex said into his phone. Screenshot everything. Time stamped. We're documenting conspiracy to commit murder. Already done, but there's more. I pulled Lauren Bancroft's accident file from Aurora PD, requesting official records now, but I found the investigator's notes in archived news articles. Detective named Sarah Chen. She's FBI now, actually. She filed a supplementary report saying the accident felt wrong. Lauren's car accelerated before hitting the ice. Brake lines showed corrosion, but it was inconsistent. Clean cuts on the main line, corrosion on the secondary. Like someone tried to make sabotage look like natural wear. Why wasn't Derek charged? Insufficient evidence. His alibi was solid. 5 witnesses put him at a poker game when Lauren went off the bridge. Plus, no clear motive. They didn't know about the insurance increase until after the investigation closed. Reaper paused. But here's the thing. I found Lauren's sister's Facebook posts from 2018. Michelle Garrett. She's been posting every January 14th for 7 years. My sister didn't die in an accident. Derek Bancroft murdered her and got away with it. Somebody please listen. V-Rex looked at Ryder. Get Michelle Garrett's contact information. She's going to want to know we're listening now. The teams split up, 8 brothers per group, spreading into the frozen forest with tactical flashlights and thermal imaging equipment borrowed from Smoke's security company. Ryder led Team 1, V-Rex, Gunner, a brother named Diesel who'd been Marine Force Recon, and 4 others with military or search and rescue experience. They moved through the trees in practiced silence, boots crunching on snow, breath visible in sub-zero air. Ryder checked his watch. 1:23 a.m. 7 hours, 36 minutes since Elena had been sealed in that chest. His phone buzzed. Track. Maya's asking questions. Smart kid. Wants to know exact search radius, team configurations, estimated time to coverage completion. I told her we'd find her mom. She said, "That's what the police said too. That's what CPS said. That's what everyone says." Ryder, she's 8, and she doesn't trust adults anymore because every adult failed her. Ryder stopped walking, felt rage and grief twist together in his chest. Typed back. Tell her bikers keep their promises. Tell her I'm bringing her mom home. Team 2, we've got tire tracks, crackled through the radio. Fresh, within the last 12 hours, leading northeast toward the creek bed. Follow them, V-Rex ordered. Team 1, adjust course to intercept. Ryder's team changed direction, moved faster. The trees thinned out ahead, revealing the frozen creek bed Maya had drawn on her map. Moonlight reflected off ice, creating just enough visibility to see disturbed snow, footprints, drag marks. V-Rex, Diesel called quietly, kneeling beside the tracks. These are boot prints, size 12, maybe 13. Heavy tread, and here, he pointed to parallel lines in the snow. Something heavy was dragged, approximately 120 pounds based on depth. Elena Rodriguez weighed 118 according to the medical alert bracelet. Which direction? Ryder asked, though he already knew. Diesel pointed northeast, following the drag marks. Toward the old maintenance shed, quarter-mile that way. They moved faster now, following the trail Derek had left. And that's when Ryder's phone rang. Not a text, a call. Reaper, voice tight with urgency. You need to hear this. I got into Derek's home computer, remotely, through his unsecured network. He's got a folder labeled Financial Planning. Inside, there's a spreadsheet. 2 tabs. Tab 1, L Project. Tab 2, E Project. L for Lauren, V-Rex said. E for Elena. Exactly. And both tabs have the same line items. Insurance policy amount, expenses to date, timeline to incident, Projected payout. Disposal method. Reaper's voice shook with anger. He's been planning Elena's murder for 4 months. Since September, right after he maxed out her disability settlement gambling. He needed money, and he had a method that worked before. Ryder felt something cold settle in his stomach. What's the disposal method listed? Exposure hypothermia, diabetic ketoacidosis, natural causes, body discovered spring thaw or never, accidental death ruling. Reaper paused. He's done this twice, successfully once, and he was about to get away with it again. Not tonight, V-Rex said flatly. Not while we're breathing. The radio crackled. Team 5 here. We found something. Old maintenance shed, northeast quadrant. Door's got a new padlock, industrial grade. Fresh scratches on the door frame like someone tried to get out from inside. Ryder started running before V-Rex gave the order. Crashed through underbrush, vaulted over a fallen log, didn't care about the noise because quiet didn't matter anymore. Only speed mattered. He reached the shed in 90 seconds, the rest of Team 1 right behind him. The structure was old, maybe 20 feet by 15. Corrugated metal walls rusted orange with age. But the padlock was brand new. Heavy duty, commercial grade. And there were scratches on the inside of the door frame. Fingernail marks. Elena! Ryder shouted. Elena Rodriguez, can you hear me? Silence. Ma'am, my name is Jackson Cole. Your daughter Maya sent us. We're Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club. We're here to get you out. Can you hear me? Nothing. Just wind and the distant sound of more motorcycles arriving. V-Rex pulled bolt cutters from his pack. Stand back. He positioned the cutters on the padlock, braced his weight, squeezed. The metal resisted. He adjusted, tried again. The lock held. Let me, Diesel said, adding his strength. Together they bore down, arms shaking with effort, breath coming in white clouds. The lock snapped. Ryder grabbed the door handle, threw it open. Inside the shed, in the corner farthest from the door, was a 6-foot industrial freezer chest. Joe Box brand, heavy duty. Another padlock on the front. And it was silent. Completely silent. No, Ryder whispered. No, no, no. V-Rex was already cutting the second lock. It broke faster. They knew the technique now. He threw it aside, grabbed the lid with both hands. On 3. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. The hinges screamed from cold, but gave way. Inside, curled in fetal position under a thin emergency blanket that had done almost nothing against the freezing metal, was Elena Rodriguez. 33 years old, maybe 5'4", probably 118, but looked smaller. Gray sweater, jeans, white sneakers, dark hair frozen to her skull. Face gray, lips blue, eyes closed, not moving. Doc! V-Rex shouted into his radio. We found her! Critical! Get the med team here now! Diesel dropped to his knees beside the chest, pressed 2 fingers to Elena's neck, counted. Pulse present, weak, maybe 38 beats per minute. Breathing shallow. She's hypothermic, but she's alive. Ryder felt his knees go weak. Alive. Still alive. Diesel was already wrapping Elena in thermal blankets, moving with the efficiency of combat medicine. Core temperature is going to be critical. We warm her too fast, we send her into cardiac arrest. We need controlled rewarming. Hospital. Now. How do we move her? Gunner asked. Very carefully. Don't straighten her limbs, they're rigid from cold. Don't jar her. We carry her exactly as she is. Diesel looked up. I need 4 men, gentle hands. We're carrying something infinitely precious. 4 brothers stepped forward. They lifted Elena from the chest like she was made of glass, blankets wrapped tight around her, and started the careful journey back to the road where vehicles waited. Ryder stayed behind for 30 seconds. Looked into the chest Elena had spent 7 hours 43 minutes trapped inside. Metal interior, no padding, condensation frozen on the walls, and scratches. Deep scratches, where fingernails had clawed at the lid, where someone had fought and screamed and tried to escape. He photographed everything with his phone, time-stamped, geo-tagged, then pulled out the Spider-Man figurine, set it carefully on the lid of the chest, evidence that someone had cared enough to act. Then he ran after the brothers, carrying Elena toward salvation. The convoy that left Black Hawk mining territory at 1:54 a.m. looked like a military operation. 4 brothers in Diesel's truck with Elena in the back seat, Doc Martinez monitoring her vitals, talking quietly on the phone with the ER physician at St. Anthony's Hospital in Denver. Behind them, 156 motorcycles in formation, escort lights blazing. Ryder rode beside the truck, one hand on the throttle, the other holding his phone as texts poured in from Reaper. "Derek's still home. Lights on in the living room. No movement. He has no idea." Found Derek's bank statements. He's $47,000 in debt to Monarch Casino, another $32,000 to loan sharks, underwater on his mortgage. The construction company's hemorrhaging money, 3 lawsuits from clients, 2 from subcontractors. He's desperate. Elena's disability settlement from her first husband was $418,000. Derek spent it all in 19 months. Gambling, mistress's apartment, truck, Harley, vacations. It's gone. All of it. Then a different message, this one from Track. "Maya's asking if you found her. What do I say?" Ryder called instead of texting. Track answered on the first ring. "Tell her we found her mother. Tell her Elena's alive. Tell her we're taking her to St. Anthony's and she's going to make it." Ryder heard Track relay the message, heard Maya's voice in the background, small, shaking, desperate, asking, "She's really alive? You promise? You're not just saying that?" "Put her on," Ryder said. Rustling, then Maya's voice, tiny through the phone. "Mr. Ryder?" "She's alive, Maya. Your mom's alive. She's hurt and she's cold, but she's breathing, and we're taking her to the hospital right now. You saved her. You understand? You saved your mother's life." Maya started crying. Not scared tears anymore. Relief tears. Ryder heard Doc Patricia in the background comforting her, telling her everything was going to be okay now. "I want to see her," Maya whispered. "We'll bring you to the hospital as soon as we arrive. Track and Doc Patricia are going to drive you. Should be there in 45 minutes. "What about Derek?" "Good question. What about Derek Bancroft, sitting in his house believing his wife was dying, believing his plan was working, believing he'd gotten away with murder a second time?" "The FBI is going to handle Derek," Ryder said carefully. "He's never going to hurt you or your mom again. That's a promise." "Okay." Small voice, trusting. "Thank you for keeping your word." Everyone else broke theirs. You didn't. Ryder's throat closed up. That's what family does, kiddo. When they rolled into St. Anthony's Hospital at 2:41 a.m., Elena's core temperature was 87.9 degrees Fahrenheit, stage 3 hypothermia. Blood glucose at 412, diabetic ketoacidosis setting in. The ER team took her immediately, Dr. Raymond Kim calling orders while nurses inserted IV lines, attached monitors, began controlled rewarming protocols. Another 90 minutes in those conditions, she wouldn't have made it, Dr. Kim told VREX quietly in the hallway while Elena received treatment. You got to her just in time. Virex nodded once, then turned to where 60 brothers filled the waiting room, lining the walls, sitting in every available chair. Reaper, report. Reaper stood, laptop balanced on his knees. Derek Bancroft's home address is 2847 Ridgemont Trail, Black Hawk Ridge. Still there as of 10 minutes ago. I've got every piece of evidence documented. Financial records showing theft of Elena's settlement, text messages proving conspiracy with Sienna Marks, spreadsheets planning both murders, Lauren Bancroft's suspicious death investigation, witness statements from neighbors who heard Elena screaming and did nothing. How do we get this to authorities who'll actually act? Someone asked. Already handled, came a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A woman stood there, mid-40s, FBI jacket, badge clipped to her belt, expression hard as steel. Behind her, 2 more agents. Special Agent Sarah Chen, she said, walking into the waiting room full of bikers without hesitation. Reaper called me 20 minutes ago, told me Derek Bancroft's trying to kill his second wife the same way he killed his first. She looked at Virex. I investigated Lauren Bancroft's death in 2018. Felt wrong then. Feels right now. Show me what you've got. For the next hour, they showed her everything. Every document, every photo, every witness statement, every piece of evidence compiled by motorcycle club members who'd spent their night rescuing a woman the system had failed 4 separate times. When they finished, Agent Chen looked at the assembled brothers with something close to awe. This is the most thoroughly documented domestic violence case I've seen in 23 years with the Bureau, she said quietly. You've done our job for us. We did our job, Virex corrected. Your job is making sure Derek Bancroft never sees freedom again. Where is he now? Home. Doesn't know his wife is alive. Doesn't know his stepdaughter escaped. Doesn't know we're coming. Agent Chen smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Then let's go ruin his morning. And Ryder thought, this is how evil loses. Not with violence, not with revenge, but with a barefoot child brave enough to run, and a family fierce enough to answer. The federal convoy that rolled into Black Hawk Ridge at 4:37 a.m. included 3 FBI vehicles, 2 Colorado State Police units, and Virex's motorcycle with Ryder beside him, because he'd promised Maya he'd see this through to the end. Agent Chen rode in the lead vehicle, warrant already signed by a federal judge who'd been woken up at 3 in the morning and had taken exactly 4 minutes to review the evidence before authorizing the arrest. Derek Bancroft's house at 2847 Ridgemont Trail sat dark, except for one light in the living room. His Ram truck was parked in the driveway, same truck he'd used to transport his wife to her death. Same truck that still had Elena's fingerprints on the inside of the tailgate, where she'd clawed trying to escape. Agent Chen's phone buzzed. She read the text, looked at Ryder. Elena's awake. Briefly. Asked for her daughter. Dr. Kim says she's stable enough for a short visit. Ryder's phone was already out, calling Track. Bring Maya now. Elena's asking for her. We're 5 minutes out, Track said. Chen checked her watch. We're moving in 60 seconds. I want Derek in custody before he realizes something's wrong. She looked at the state police officers. Front and back. Nobody leaves this house. They moved into position, silent, professional. Chen walked up the front steps with 2 agents flanking her, knocked hard on the door. Derek Bancroft! FBI! Open the door! 10 seconds of silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. Derek Bancroft stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair messy from sleep, confusion on his face that looked entirely genuine. He was handsome in that all-American way, square jaw, clear blue eyes, The kind of face that made people trust him instantly. Exactly the kind of face that got away with murder. "Can I help you?" His voice was calm, concerned, neighborly. "Derek William Bancroft, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, felony assault, and financial exploitation." Chen held up the warrant. "Hands behind your back. Now." Derek's face went blank. Not scared, not angry, just empty, like a mask had dropped. "I think there's been a mistake." "No mistake. Your wife is alive, your stepdaughter escaped, and you're going to prison for the rest of your life." Chen nodded to the agents. "Cuff him." That's when Derek's expression changed. The neighborly concern vanished, replaced by cold calculation. "I want my lawyer." "You'll get one, after we read you your rights and process you." The agents moved forward. Derek didn't resist, didn't fight, just stood there while they cuffed him, read him his Miranda rights, walked him toward the federal vehicle. But as they passed Ryder standing beside V. Rex's motorcycle, Derek stopped. "You're the bikers." Not a question, a statement. "Elena's little brat ran to you." Ryder felt rage surge through his chest but kept his voice level. "That little brat saved her mother's life. Something every adult around her failed to do." Derek laughed. Actually laughed. "You think you've won? You think this matters? I'll be out in 72 hours. You know who I am in this town? City council, business owner, charity volunteer. People love me. Elena's a grieving widow with mental health issues. Everyone knows it. Everyone will believe me." "Everyone believed you 7 years ago, too," Ryder said quietly, "when you killed Lauren. But we found her sister, Michelle. She's been waiting 7 years for someone to listen. Now the FBI's listening." Derek's face went rigid. "I don't know what you're talking about." Lauren Christine Bancroft died January 14th, 2018. Drowned when her car went through the ice at Cherry Creek Reservoir. $220,000 insurance payout. Except it wasn't an accident, was it? You cut her brake lines, made it look like corrosion, sent her off a bridge, and collected the money. Ryder stepped closer. "Same pattern as Elena. Increase the insurance, isolate the victim. Kill them in a way that looks accidental. Collect the money, move on to the next target." "You can't prove any of that." "We can prove all of it. Financial records, text messages with your girlfriend, spreadsheets planning both murders, Lauren's sister's testimony, Elena's testimony, Maya's testimony, your own words on Sienna's phone." Ryder pulled out his own phone, showed Derek the screenshot of the text message. Just like with Lauren, nobody questioned that one. Derek's face drained of color. "Get him out of here," Agent Chen said. The agents walked Derek to the vehicle, put him inside, drove away. Ryder watched the taillights disappear, felt V. Rex's hand on his shoulder. "One down," V. Rex said. "Now let's go get the girlfriend." Sienna Marks lived in a luxury apartment in downtown Denver, paid for with money Derek had stolen from Elena's disability settlement. The FBI knocked on her door at 5:14 a.m. She answered wearing silk pajamas and holding a glass of wine, half drunk, celebrating a freedom that would never come. "Sienna Marks, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder." Agent Chen didn't bother with pleasantries this time. "We've read your text messages. We know everything." Sienna's wine glass hit the floor, shattered. "I didn't do anything. Derek said it was an accident. He said she wandered off during a fight. I didn't know." You texted him, "Weather's perfect. She won't last the night," on January 17th at 6:23 p.m. Chen held up her phone, showing the evidence. You discussed splitting $650,000. You called it just like with Lauren. That's conspiracy to commit murder, federal offense, 25 to life. Sienna started crying. Not scared tears, angry tears.
He said it would be easy. He said nobody would question it. He said we'd be in Arizona by next week.
Instead, you're going to federal prison. Hands behind your back. They arrested her in her apartment, walked her out past neighbors watching through doorways, loaded her into a vehicle headed to the same detention center where Derek waited. At St. Anthony's Hospital, Maya Rodriguez sat in a chair beside her mother's bed, holding Elena's hand with both of her small ones, crying so hard her whole body shook. Elena's eyes were open, barely, moving slowly from the warming protocols and the insulin they'd given her to stabilize her blood sugar. "Baby," Elena whispered. Her voice was destroyed from screaming in that freezer chest.
"You're safe. You're okay. You're alive, Mommy. You're alive."
Maya pressed her mother's hand to her face.
"I ran and found the bikers just like you said, and they came and got you, and Derek's in jail, and you're alive. You saved me."
Elena's words came out slow, slurred from hypothermia and trauma.
"You are so brave. So brave, baby."
Track stood in the doorway with Doc Patricia, watching the reunion, not bothering to hide the tears on his face. Ryder stood beside them, Spider-Man figurine still in his vest pocket. Promise kept. Dr. Kim approached quietly.
"She's going to make it. Core temperature's back to 94, blood sugar stabilizing. We're treating frostbite on her fingers and toes, but no permanent damage. Pneumonia in both lungs from the cold air, but antibiotics are handling it." He paused. "There's something else. When we examined her, we found evidence of systematic abuse. Cracked rib, partially healed. Rope burns on both wrists. Bruising in different stages of healing. Hair missing from her scalp where someone pulled it. And scarring on her arms consistent with defensive wounds." "Photographed?" Ryder asked. "Every single mark, documented, measured. It'll stand up in court." Dr. Kim's jaw clenched. "How long was she with him?" 19 months. 19 months of hell." "Doctor," Kim looked back at Elena and Maya, still holding each other. "She's a survivor. Both of them are." Ryder's phone rang. Reaper, voice tight with urgency. "You need to hear this. FBI just searched Derek's house. Found his home office, wall safe behind a painting. Inside, they found insurance policies on 3 women. Lauren Bancroft, Elena Rodriguez, and a third." "Who?" "Derek's mother. Patricia Ann Bancroft, 74 years old. Lives in a nursing home in Aurora. Terminal lung cancer. 6 months to live, according to medical records. Derek took out a life insurance policy on her 8 months ago. $350,000. He was planning to kill his own mother." Ryder felt sick. "Does she know?" "FBI's with her now. She had no idea Derek took out a policy. Said she hasn't seen him in 2 years. Said he called her once 6 months ago asking about her medical treatment, how much time the doctors gave her, whether she was suffering. She thought he was being a concerned son. He was calculating when to kill her." Jesus Christ. There's more. FBI found Elena's insulin in Derek's home office, had it tested. It's been diluted with saline. For months. Derek's been slowly poisoning her, making her diabetes worse, making her sicker. So when she died, it would look natural. Reaper's voice shook. He was torturing her. Every single day, making her think her body was failing when really, he was killing her slowly. Ryder closed his eyes,
felt rage and grief war in his chest. Opened them, looked at Elena holding her daughter. She didn't know yet. Didn't know her insulin had been poisoned. Didn't know her own body had been weaponized against her. "Tell the FBI to add attempted murder by poisoning to the charges," Ryder said quietly. "And tell them to test the insulin Derek gave to Lauren 7 years ago. I'll bet anything he did the same thing to her." "Already requested. Aurora PD's exhuming Lauren's body for new toxicology. If Derek poisoned her insulin too, it'll show up." V-Rex appeared in the doorway, face grim. "Derek's asking for a lawyer. Public defender's on the way. FBI starting interrogation in 90 minutes. "Can we watch?" "Agent Chen said observers are welcome, as long as we stay quiet." V-Rex looked at Ryder. "You want to see Derek Bancroft's face when he realizes his plan fell apart?" "Yes." They drove to the Federal Detention Center in downtown Denver, arrived at 7:23 a.m., as Derek was being moved from holding to an interrogation room. Ryder and V-Rex watched through one-way glass as Derek sat at a metal table, handcuffed, wearing orange scrubs, face still blank. Agent Chen entered with another agent, set down a file folder, sat across from Derek. "Your wife is alive," she said, without preamble. "Elena Rodriguez survived 7 hours 43 minutes in that freezer chest. She's at St. Anthony's Hospital right now, giving a statement about everything you did to her over 19 months. The isolation, the financial control, the physical abuse, the poisoned insulin." Derek's face didn't change. "I want my lawyer." "Your lawyer's coming. But first, let me tell you what we found." Chen opened the folder. "Insurance policy on Elena, $650,000, increased from $100,000 just 4 months ago. Same pattern as Lauren Bancroft's policy 7 years ago, increased 8 weeks before she died." "That's not illegal." "No, but conspiracy to commit murder is." Chen laid out printed text messages. "These are from Sienna Marks's phone, your girlfriend, who, by the way, is in the holding cell next to yours, and she's already asking about a plea deal." Derek's jaw clenched. First crack in the facade. "Weather's perfect. She won't last the night," Chen read. "Just like with Lauren, nobody questions that one." "Those are your words, Mr. Bancroft." "In writing. Admitting you killed your first wife. Admitting you were killing your second wife. Admitting it was planned, premeditated murder for financial gain." "I'm not saying anything without my lawyer." "Fine. Then listen." Chen laid out more documents. Financial records showing you stole $418,000 from Elena's disability settlement. Spent it on gambling, your mistress, personal expenses. Bank statements showing you're $47,000 in debt. Construction company records showing 3 lawsuits, 2 liens, bankruptcy pending. You needed money desperately, so you decided to kill your wife. Again. She pulled out another document. "This is the insurance policy on your mother, Patricia Bancroft. $350,000. Taken out without her knowledge 8 months ago when you learned she had terminal cancer. Were you going to kill her too, after you killed Elena? Make it look like natural causes, collect another payout?" Derek's hands curled into fists on the table. "We exhumed Lauren's body this morning," Chen said, lying smoothly. The exhumation was scheduled but hadn't happened yet. "Toxicology's being run right now. If you poisoned her insulin like you poisoned Elena's, we'll know. And when we know, you're looking at 3 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of murder in the first degree, conspiracy, kidnapping, assault, financial exploitation, and insurance fraud across 2 states. She leaned forward. "You're never seeing daylight again." "My lawyer," Derek said through clenched teeth. "Now." "He's coming. But here's the thing. Sienna's already talking. She's giving up everything. The planning, the conversations, the promises you made. She's testifying against you in exchange for a reduced sentence. So whatever defense you're planning, it's not going to work. Chen stood. You should have thought about that before you locked a diabetic woman in a freezer chest and left her to die while your 8-year-old stepdaughter listened to you plan her murder. She walked out, left Derek alone in the interrogation room. Through the glass, Ryder watched Derek's face finally break, watched the mask slip completely, watched cold rage replace the neighborly charm. And Ryder thought, that's the real you. That's the monster Maya heard on the phone. That's who Elena lived with for 19 months. Back at the hospital, Elena was fully awake now, sitting up in bed with warm blankets and oxygen, and Maya curled beside her like she'd never let go. Agent Chen arrived at 9:47 a.m. with a victim advocate and a recording device. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Special Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI. I know you've been through hell, but I need to ask you some questions about Derek. Can you do that? Elena looked at Maya, then back to Chen. Yes, I want him in prison. I want him away from my daughter forever. For the next hour, Elena talked about how Derek had charmed her after her first husband died, how he'd isolated her from family, controlled her money, broke her car so she couldn't leave, took her phone, monitored every movement. About the first time he hit her, 3 months into the marriage, then apologized and cried and promised it would never happen again. About how it happened again and again and again, until she stopped counting bruises. About calling 911 and having the police believe Derek over her. About CPS visiting and closing the case. About trying to get a protection order and being denied. About going to the hospital with a cracked rib and being sent home with her abuser. I tried to leave 7 times, Elena whispered. 7 times I packed bags, planned escape, got ready to run. And 7 times Derek found out and stopped me. The last time, in November, he locked me in the bedroom for 3 days. No food, no water. Just me and a bucket, and the sound of him outside the door telling me I'd never leave him alive. Did you believe him? Yes. So I started planning, not escape, survival. I taught Maya how to read maps, how to navigate, how to identify safe places. I told her if anything ever happened to me, find the bikers, find Iron Brotherhood. They protect people when nobody else will. Elena looked at Ryder standing in the doorway. I was right. Maya squeezed her mother's hand. You were right, Mommy. Agent Chen closed her notebook. Derek Bancroft's being charged with attempted murder of you, conspiracy to commit murder, murder of Lauren Bancroft pending toxicology results, attempted murder of his mother through insurance fraud, kidnapping, assault, financial exploitation, and multiple counts of domestic violence. He's being held without bail. He's never getting out. What about Sienna? She's cooperating, giving us everything. She'll serve time, but significantly less than Derek. Elena nodded. Good. I don't want revenge. I just want safety. For me and for Maya. I want to sleep without being afraid. I want my daughter to have a childhood without terror. I want a life where I'm not prey. You'll have it, Chen promised. Derek Bancroft's done. He's finished. And every system that failed you is going to answer for it. The bail hearing happened 3 days later. Derek stood before Judge Patricia Morrison in orange scrubs, shackled, public defender beside him, arguing for reasonable bail. Your Honor, my client is a respected businessman with deep community ties. He's not a flight risk. Bail should be set at— No, Judge Morrison cut him off. Mr. Bancroft is charged with attempted murder of his wife, conspiracy to murder her, credible evidence of murdering his first wife, and planning to murder his terminally ill mother. He's demonstrated a pattern of killing women for financial gain. He's a danger to the community and an extreme flight risk given the charges he faces. She looked directly at Derek. Bail is denied. You'll remain in federal custody until trial. Derek's lawyer tried to argue. The judge gavelled him down. Outside the courtroom, Maya stood with Elena and Ryder, watching through the window as Derek was led away. Derek saw them, stopped, stared directly at Maya with cold, calculating eyes. Maya stepped forward, pressed her small hand against the glass, and spoke clearly enough for Derek to hear through the barrier. "You lose. I win. You're in the box now." Derek's face went white. Guards pulled him away. Elena wrapped her arms around her daughter, buried her face in Maya's hair, and finally, for the first time in 19 months, felt safe. The trial began 6 weeks later on a cold February morning, with snow falling outside the federal courthouse in Denver. Ina sat in the front row with Maya beside her, Track on her other side, and 60 Iron Brotherhood members filling the gallery behind them like a wall of leather and solidarity. Ryder sat directly behind Maya, close enough that if she needed him, he was right there. Derek entered in an orange jumpsuit, shackled, flanked by federal marshals. His public defender looked tired already. The prosecution had 47 witnesses, 800 pages of evidence, and a case so airtight it could survive in space. Lead prosecutor Amanda Chen, no relation to Agent Sarah Chen, stood for opening statements. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about a man who saw his wives as financial opportunities, who killed one woman 7 years ago, got away with it, and tried to kill another woman using the exact same method. A man who poisoned his second wife's insulin for months, making her sick, making her suffer. So when he locked her in a freezer chest in sub-zero temperatures and left her to die, it would look like natural causes complicated by diabetes." She turned, looked directly at Derek. "This is a case about premeditated, calculated, cold-blooded murder for profit. And the only reason Elena Rodriguez is alive to testify is because her 8-year-old daughter ran 3 miles barefoot through freezing temperatures to find help when every adult authority had failed them." The defense attorney, Marcus Webb, argued that Derek was a grieving husband whose wife had mental health issues, that the evidence was circumstantial, that the text messages were taken out of context. But his voice lacked conviction. Hard to sound convincing when the evidence included the defendant's own written admission. Just like with Lauren, nobody questioned that one. The first witness was Dr. Raymond Kim from St. Anthony's Hospital. He described Elena's condition when she arrived. Core temperature 87.9 degrees, stage 3 hypothermia, diabetic ketoacidosis, frostbite, dehydration, evidence of long-term systematic abuse. "In my 15 years as an emergency physician, I've never seen a domestic violence case this severe where the victim survived," Dr. Kim testified. "Another hour in those conditions and Ms. Rodriguez would have died. It wasn't luck that saved her. It was her daughter's courage and the immediate response of the people who found her." The second witness was Reaper, testifying about the digital evidence he'd compiled. Financial records showing Derek stole Elena's entire disability settlement. Text messages between Derek and Sienna planning the murder. The spreadsheet labeled E-Project, with timeline to death and projected insurance payout. "This wasn't a crime of passion," Reaper said calmly. "This was a business transaction. Derek Bancroft treated his wife's murder like a construction project. He had a budget, a timeline, and a profit margin." The jury looked sick. The third witness was Agent Sarah Chen, who'd investigated Lauren Bancroft's death in 2018 and had never stopped believing it was murder. She described the reopened investigation, the exhumation of Lauren's body, the new toxicology results that had come back 3 weeks ago. We found traces of diluted insulin in Lauren Bancroft's preserved tissue samples, Agent Chen testified. Same pattern as Elena Rodriguez. Derek was poisoning both women, making them sick, making their diabetes unmanageable. When Lauren died in that car accident, everyone assumed her blood sugar spiked and she lost consciousness. But it wasn't an accident. Derek had been sabotaging her insulin for months. He murdered her slowly, then sent her car off a bridge to finish it. The courtroom erupted. The judge gavelled for order. Derek sat motionless, face blank, like he was watching someone else's trial. Michelle Garrett took the stand next, Lauren's sister, who'd been trying to get someone to listen for 7 years. She was 43 years old, elementary school teacher, and she cried through her entire testimony.
I told police Lauren was afraid of Derek. I told them she was planning to leave him. I told them the accident didn't make sense because Lauren was a careful driver. But they didn't listen. They said I was grieving, looking for someone to blame, that sometimes accidents are just accidents.
Michelle looked at the jury.
For 7 years, I've posted on social media every January 14th, begging someone to investigate. Nobody did. And Derek got away with murder. And then he tried to do it again.
Why do you think authorities didn't listen? The prosecutor asked.
Because Derek's charming? Because he's successful? Because he volunteers and goes to church and everyone likes him?
Because my sister was just a 31-year-old woman with no power and no voice, and Derek made sure she stayed that way. Michelle's voice broke.
The system protects men like Derek. It always has. Until someone forces it to stop.
The prosecutor nodded. And who forced it to stop this time?
An 8-year-old girl who refused to be silent when every adult around her was.
Maya squeezed Elena's hand. Elena kissed the top of her daughter's head. The prosecution called witness after witness. The police officer who'd responded to the domestic violence call and believed Derek over Elena. The CPS investigator who'd closed the case as unfounded. The hospital's social worker who'd documented Elena's injuries but hadn't reported them. The family court judge who'd denied the protection order for lack of evidence. Each one testified about their failure. Each one admitted they'd been wrong. Each one described how Derek had manipulated them with his charm and credibility while his victims suffered in silence. Why did you believe Mr. Bancroft over Miss Rodriguez? The prosecutor asked Officer David Martinez, the cop who'd filed the domestic violence report as verbal argument only. Martinez looked ashamed. Because I've been trained to assess credibility based on demeanor. Derek was calm, cooperative, concerned. Elena was shaking, couldn't make eye contact, seemed confused. I interpreted her fear as instability rather than terror. I made a judgment call, and it was wrong. If I'd looked harder, if I'd asked better questions, if I'd trusted my instincts instead of my assumptions, maybe she wouldn't have spent 19 months being tortured. What would you do differently now? Everything. I'd separate them completely. I'd document every injury I could see. I'd ask Elena directly if she was afraid, if she needed help escaping, if she had somewhere safe to go. I'd treat every domestic call like a potential homicide in progress, because, statistically, it might be. Martinez looked at Elena. I'm sorry I failed you. I'm sorry I left you with a man who was trying to kill you. That's on me, and I'll carry it forever. The defense tried to object, claimed the testimony was prejudicial. The judge overruled. The witness is describing his professional assessment, overruled. When it was time for victim testimony, Elena took the stand. She'd lost weight, looked fragile, but her voice was steady. The prosecutor walked her through 19 months of systematic abuse. The isolation from family, the financial control, the physical violence that escalated over time, the poisoned insulin that made her diabetes unmanageable, the threats that if she ever tried to leave, Derek would kill her and make it look like an accident. "Did you believe him?" the prosecutor asked.
Yes, because he told me exactly how he'd done it before with Lauren.
He got drunk one night in December and bragged about it. Said Lauren was stupid enough to trust him, stupid enough to drive the car he'd sabotaged, stupid enough to die exactly when he needed the insurance money. He said I was even stupider for marrying him in the first place. The jury looked horrified. Derek's face remained blank. "Tell us about January 17th, the prosecutor said gently. Elena took a breath.
Derek told me we were going for a drive. I said I didn't want to go. He grabbed my arm, dragged me to the truck, forced me inside. Maya was watching from her bedroom window. I saw her face. I couldn't scream because Derek had his hand over my mouth. He drove to the old mining territory, pulled out a freezer chest from the truck bed, opened it, said, "Get in." I said no. He punched me in the stomach, shoved me inside, closed the lid, locked it.
"What did you do?"
I screamed. I clawed at the lid until my fingernails tore.
I tried to break the lock from inside, but it was industrial grade.
I could feel the cold seeping into my bones.
I knew I was dying. My blood sugar was already high from the poisoned insulin, and I didn't have my emergency kit. I knew I had maybe 6 hours before I went into a coma. Elena's voice shook.
But before Derek closed the lid, I threw my medical alert bracelet out the crack. I'd scratched our GPS coordinates and his name into the back. I threw it, hoping Maya would find it, hoping someone would listen to her even though they never listened to me. What were you thinking in that freezer? I was thinking about my daughter, about how brave she is, about how she deserved better than watching her mother die. I was thinking I should have left sooner, fought harder, screamed louder. But mostly, I was thinking, please, God, let Maya be smart enough to survive this. Let someone protect her when I can't.
The prosecutor paused. Elena, your daughter ran 3 miles barefoot in sub-zero temperatures to find help. She found Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club. She told them you were dying. They assembled 156 riders and searched all night until they found you. What do you want to say to them? Elena turned in the witness box, looked directly at Ryder, at V-Rex, at Track, at every brother who'd spent that night in freezing mountains searching for a stranger.
Thank you for believing an 8-year-old child when every adult authority didn't. Thank you for keeping your promise to her. Thank you for giving us our lives back.
60 bikers nodded in unison. Several weren't bothering to hide tears. Then Maya testified. The judge set up accommodations for a child witness. She could sit, have breaks, have a support person nearby. Maya chose Ryder. He sat in a chair beside the witness stand while Maya answered questions in a clear, steady voice that sounded far older than 8 years. The prosecutor asked about overhearing Derek's phone conversation planning Elena's murder, about finding the medical alert bracelet, about drawing the map, about running 3 miles barefoot through snow and ice and darkness to find help. Why didn't you call 911? The prosecutor asked.
Because I did that before, and they didn't help. I called when Derek hurt Mommy in October. Police came and did nothing. So I knew I had to find someone who would actually act. Mommy told me bikers protect people nobody else cares about. She was right.
What did you think was going to happen to your mother if you didn't find help?
She was going to die. Derek said so on the phone. He said hypothermia plus no insulin equals death in 6 to 8 hours. Then he'd report her missing Sunday morning, play the grieving widower, collect $650,000, run away with his girlfriend.
Maya looked at Derek directly, no fear.
He thought I was asleep. He thought I was stupid.
He was wrong. The defense attorney tried to cross-examine gently, suggest that maybe Maya misunderstood what she heard, maybe she was confused, maybe her memory wasn't reliable. Maya cut him off.
I have photographic memory. I remember every word Derek said. I remember the dates, the times, the exact phrases. I wrote it all down in my diary with timestamps. The FBI has my diary. They verified everything. I'm not confused. I'm not mistaken. Derek tried to kill my mother, and I stopped him.
The courtroom was silent. The defense rested after 2 days, calling no witnesses, presenting no real defense. Derek's attorney argued reasonable doubt, but nobody believed it. Jury deliberation took 93 minutes. They returned with a verdict at 4:47 p.m. on February 23rd. On the charge of attempted murder of Elena Rodriguez, how do you find?
Guilty.
Elena grabbed Maya's hand, squeezed hard. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder with Sienna Marks, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of murder in the first degree of Lauren Bancroft, how do you find?
Guilty.
Michelle Garrett sobbed in the gallery. 7 years. 7 years of being told she was wrong, being dismissed, being ignored, and finally, justice. The verdicts continued. Guilty on kidnapping, guilty on assault, guilty on financial exploitation, guilty on insurance fraud, guilty on every single charge. Derek showed no emotion, just sat there like a statue while his life ended. Sentencing happened 2 weeks later. Judge Morrison looked at Derek with open contempt. Mr. Bancroft, you are a predator who weaponized trust and charm to torture and murder women for profit. You killed Lauren Bancroft in 2018 and collected $220,000. You attempted to kill Elena Rodriguez in 2025 for $650,000. You planned to kill your own terminally ill mother for $350,000. You saw human beings as transactions. You destroyed lives for money. She paused. For the murder of Lauren Christine Bancroft, life in prison without possibility of parole. For the attempted murder of Elena Rodriguez, life in prison without possibility of parole, consecutive. For conspiracy, 25 years consecutive. For kidnapping, 15 years consecutive. You will spend the remainder of your natural life in federal maximum security custody. You will never again have the opportunity to harm another woman. The gavel came down with finality. Derek was led away in shackles. He looked back once at Elena and Maya, smiled. A cold, empty smile that said, "This isn't over." But it was over, and he knew it. Sienna Marks took a plea deal the same day. Conspiracy to commit murder with cooperation. 22 years federal prison in exchange for testimony against Derek. Her lawyer argued she'd been manipulated, coerced, didn't understand what she was agreeing to. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Ms. Marks, you texted the defendant, "She won't last the night," while a woman was freezing to death in the mountains. You discussed splitting insurance money from a planned murder. You showed no remorse, no concern, no humanity. 22 years is generous. Take the deal or face trial and get life. Sienna took the deal. Civil court awarded Elena $1.2 million in restitution, Derek's seized assets, the construction company's value, his retirement accounts, everything. It wouldn't undo 19 months of torture, but it would give Elena and Maya financial security Derek had tried to steal. The system reforms started quietly, but grew. Officer Martinez transferred to the domestic violence unit, spent his off hours training other officers to recognize coercive control and believe victims. The CPS investigator, Jennifer Harmon, created new protocols requiring multiple home visits, private victim interviews away from abusers, and mandatory skepticism of cooperative perpetrators. The family court judge who'd denied Elena's protection order retired early, but not before implementing policy changes requiring abuse allegations to be taken seriously, even without arrests, convictions, or medical documentation. The hospital social worker lobbied for automatic abuse screening for all emergency visits, mandatory reporting even when victims deny abuse, and safety planning for anyone showing warning signs. They couldn't undo their failures, but they could prevent future ones. And Elena, recovering in the apartment Iron Brotherhood had secured for her and Maya, started her own healing. Physical therapy for frostbite damage, therapy for PTSD, slowly rebuilding her diabetes management with insulin she could trust. Maya started therapy too, art therapy where she drew pictures of Spider-Man and motorcycles and brave girls running through snow. Talk therapy where she processed trauma and learned it wasn't her job to save everyone. And the Iron Brotherhood stayed. Not hovering, not intrusive, but present. Track stopped by twice a week with his daughters, who became Maya's friends. Doc Patricia taught Elena self-defense and helped her feel powerful in her body again. Ryder came every Sunday, read books with Maya, taught her about motorcycles, became the protective uncle she needed. One Sunday afternoon in April, 3 months after Derek's sentencing, Maya asked Ryder a question. "Do you think my mommy will ever stop being scared?" Ryder thought about Amanda, about how fear lived in the body long after the threat was gone. "Yeah, kiddo. I think she will. It takes time, but your mom's strong. She survived 19 months of hell. She'll survive this too." "What about me? Will I stop having nightmares?" "Yes, maybe not today, maybe not next month, but eventually the nightmares get smaller and the good dreams get bigger. And one day you wake up and realize you're okay." He paused. "You know what helps?" "What?" "Knowing you're not alone. Knowing you've got family who'll protect you. Knowing the bad guy's in prison forever and can't hurt you anymore." Ryder smiled. "You've got all that, Maya. You've got us." Maya hugged him hard. "You kept your promise. You said you'd bring Mommy home, and you did." That's what family does. And somewhere in federal maximum security prison, Derek Bancroft sat in protective custody because even hardened criminals don't tolerate men who hurt women and children. He would spend the rest of his life in a cell, alone, powerless, forgotten, while Elena and Maya built new lives surrounded by people who actually protected them. Justice wasn't always perfect, but sometimes, when an 8-year-old was brave enough to run and a family was fierce enough to answer, it worked exactly as it should. 6 months after Derek Bancroft was sentenced to die in prison, Elena Rodriguez stood in front of 43 police officers at the Denver Police Academy and told them exactly how the system had failed her. She didn't pull punches, didn't soften the truth, just laid it out in her quiet, steady voice, while every cop in that room listened with expressions that ranged from shame to determination. "I called 911 4 times, Elena said. 4 times I told officers my husband was hurting me. 4 times I was told everything looked fine, no visible injuries,
No arrest needed. The last officer who came to my house, Officer Martinez, he's here today. He saved my life by admitting he was wrong. How many of you would have the courage to do the same?
Martinez sat in the front row, face red, but he didn't look away. That took guts. I went to the hospital with a cracked rib. The social worker documented it, gave me a pamphlet about domestic violence resources, sent me home with my abuser. I tried to get a protection order. The judge denied it because I had no arrest record, no conviction, no medical evidence beyond bruises I couldn't explain without putting myself in more danger. Elena's hands shook, but her voice stayed level.
CPS came to my house because my daughter told her school counselor, my stepdad hurt my mommy. The investigator interviewed me, with Derek sitting 10 feet away. I said I was fine because I knew if I told the truth, he'd kill me the second she left. So she closed the case and walked away. And Derek spent the next 2 months planning my murder.
Silence in that auditorium. Heavy, awful silence.
I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty, Elena continued. I'm telling you this so the next woman who calls for help gets believed.
So the next officer who shows up at a domestic violence call trusts the victim's fear over the abuser's charm. So the next CPS investigator separates the victim from the perpetrator and asks the hard questions. So the next judge grants the protection order even without an arrest because sometimes the only evidence of danger is a woman's desperate plea for help. She paused, looked around the room. My 8-year-old daughter saved my life because she was brave enough to do what 43 trained professionals didn't do. She acted. She believed me. She ran 3 miles barefoot through sub-zero temperatures to find people who would help. That should shame every single one of us. The commander stood, started clapping. Then Martinez. Then every officer in the academy rose to their feet and applauded, while Elena stood on that stage, fighting tears, turning her trauma into change. After the presentation, Martinez approached her, hand extended. Mrs. Rodriguez, I can't undo what I did. Can't take back leaving you with the man who is planning to kill you. But I can promise you, I'll never make that mistake again. Elena shook his hand.
Then make that promise to every victim you meet. Not just me. Every single one.
Yes, ma'am. She'd given 17 presentations in 6 months. Police academies, hospital staff trainings, CPS conferences, family court judicial education seminars. Every time she stood in front of people who'd failed someone like her and told them exactly how to do better. It was exhausting. It was necessary. And slowly, painfully, systems started changing. Maya changed too. Started a foundation called The Box Project, with help from Reaper, who built the website, and VREX, who secured nonprofit status. The mission was simple. Provide emergency assistance to children of domestic violence victims. School supplies, therapy funding, safe housing deposits. Whatever kids needed when their worlds fell apart. The first donation came from Michelle Garrett, Lauren's sister, who sent $5,000 with a note. For the little girl who had the courage my sister needed. Use this to help other children find their voices. The second donation came from Derek's mother, Patricia, who'd disowned her son publicly and liquidated her life insurance policy to give Maya $73,000. I should have seen what my son was. Should have stopped him before he killed Lauren. Before he tried to kill you and your mother. This doesn't fix anything, but maybe it helps someone. By September, the Box Project had raised $218,000 and helped 47 children escape abuse. Maya ran the foundation from Elena's laptop, fielding requests with the same fierce intelligence she'd used to save her mother. When a 10-year-old from Colorado Springs called the hotline, saying his stepdad was hurting his mom, Maya didn't hesitate. She called Ryder directly. "We've got a situation. Kid named Lucas. His mom's being abused. Can you help?" Ryder and 6 brothers rode to Colorado Springs that night, knocked on the door, offered protection. The mother and son were in a safe house within 3 hours. The abuser was arrested within 6, and Lucas, terrified and traumatized, told Maya on the phone afterward, "You saved us, just like the bikers saved you." "That's what we do," Maya said simply. "We protect each other." The Iron Brotherhood's reputation transformed. They went from feared outlaws to celebrated community protectors. News outlets ran stories about the motorcycle club that rescued a dying woman and brought down a serial killer. Donations poured into their emergency fund. Abuse victims called asking for help. And the brothers, who'd spent decades being treated like criminals, discovered people actually trusted them. V-Rex didn't know what to do with it at first. "We're getting thank you letters," he told Ryder one afternoon at the roadhouse, holding up a stack of envelopes. "From domestic violence shelters, from victim advocates, from women we've never met saying they feel safer knowing we're out there." "That bother you?" Ryder asked. "No, just strange. Spent 50 years having people cross the street when they saw me coming. Now they're asking for autographs." V-Rex shook his head. "But if this is who we are now, if this is what we're known for, I'm good with that. Rather be protectors than outlaws." "We were always protectors. People are just finally noticing." In late September, Maya turned 9 years old. Elena asked what she wanted for her birthday. Maya's answer was immediate. "Party at the Roadhouse, with all the brothers. And I want to invite Lucas and his mom and every kid the Box Project helped." So on September 23rd, Iron Brotherhood's Roadhouse filled with children and mothers who'd survived what Elena survived, who'd found courage because Maya showed them how. 63 people total, half of them under 12, all of them alive because someone had cared enough to act. Ryder watched Maya move through the party, hugging kids who understood her trauma, talking to mothers who knew her fear, completely at ease with the family she'd found in the unlikeliest place. Track's daughters taught her a card game. Doc Patricia gave her a leather jacket, custom-made in child size, with patches reading, "Honorary Iron Brotherhood." V-Rex presented her with a plaque. "Maya Rodriguez, Bravest Member, 2025. Elena stood beside Ryder, watching her daughter laugh for the first time in months. "She still has nightmares," Elena said quietly. "Wakes up screaming that Derek's coming back. I tell her he's in prison forever, but fear doesn't listen to logic. She's getting better, though." "You both are." "Yeah, slowly." Elena looked at Ryder. "I never thanked you properly. You kept your promise to an 8-year-old child when you had no reason to believe her. You didn't know us, didn't owe us anything, but you came anyway." "That's what family does." "You keep saying that. Family. But we're not your family. We're strangers who showed up desperate and broken." Ryder thought about Amanda, about the family that should have saved her and didn't, about the promise he made at her funeral that he'd never let another woman die if he could prevent it. "You stopped being strangers the second Maya asked for help. You became family when we decided you mattered. That's how this works." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to repay." "You don't repay family. You pay it forward. That's what you're doing with the presentations, with helping other victims, with raising a daughter who's turning her trauma into purpose." Ryder smiled. "You're already doing it." The party wound down around 9 p.m., kids falling asleep on couches, mothers collecting tired children, everyone hugging Maya goodbye and promising to stay in touch. When the last guest left, only Iron Brotherhood remained, and Elena and Maya, who'd become permanent fixtures. Maya climbed onto the bar where she'd sat 6 months ago with frostbite and terror, held up the plaque V-Rex had given her. "I have a speech." "Let's hear it," V-Rex said. "I'm 9 years old today. Last January, I was 8 and running through snow because my stepdad tried to kill my mom. I ran because I remembered what Mommy told me. Find the bikers. They protect people nobody else cares about." Maya's voice stayed steady. "I found you. You kept your promise. You saved my mom. You caught Derek. You made me feel safe for the first time in 19 months. So I'm making a promise back. I'm going to help every kid who's scared like I was scared. I'm going to make sure they know somebody cares."
That's what family does. 60 bikers stood, raised their hands in salute. Maya saluted back. Then she pulled something from her pocket. The Spider-Man figurine, paint-chipped, one leg bent, the symbol of hope that had somehow turned real. She held it out to Ryder.
"I gave you this for luck. You gave it back when Mommy was safe. I want you to keep it now, not for luck, for remembering. Every time you see it, remember that sometimes the scariest-looking people are the real heroes. Sometimes an 8-year-old is braver than every adult in the room. And sometimes, running barefoot through snow saves the person you love most."
Ryder took the figurine, felt his throat close.
"I'll keep it forever." "Good. Because you're my family now. All of you. And families keep each other's treasures."
1 week later, Elena and Maya drove to Fort Logan National Cemetery with Ryder and Michelle Garrett.
They stood at Lauren Bancroft's grave, fresh flowers in their hands, wind blowing cold through the October afternoon. Michelle knelt, placed roses on the headstone.
"Lauren, you were right. You told me Derek was dangerous. I believed you, but I couldn't prove it. Couldn't get anyone to listen. For 7 years I've been screaming into the void that your death wasn't an accident. Now they know. Now everyone knows."
She touched the stone gently.
"Derek's in prison forever. He'll die there. He can't hurt anyone else. You can rest now."
Elena placed her flowers beside Michelle's.
"I'm so sorry I didn't know about you. Didn't know Derek killed you. If I'd known, maybe I wouldn't have married him. Maybe I could have stopped him before he tried to kill me, too."
Her voice broke.
"But I promise you, Lauren, every woman I help through advocacy work, every cop I train to believe victims, every system I push to change, that's for you. That's to make sure your death mattered."
Maya added her flowers last, small purple wildflowers picked from the roadside.
"Miss Lauren, I never met you, but I know you were brave because you tried to leave Derek and he killed you for it. My mommy's brave too. She survived what you didn't, and I'm going to make sure other kids' mommies survive too. That's my promise."
They stood in silence for 5 minutes, 4 people connected by one man's evil and their collective refusal to let him win. Then Michelle spoke, voice thick with tears.
"Thank you for believing me, for catching him, for making sure Lauren's death wasn't for nothing."
"She didn't die for nothing," Ryder said. "She died fighting, and her fight helped save Elena. That matters." They drove back to Denver as sunset turned the sky orange and pink. Elena held Maya close in the back seat, both of them quiet, both of them healing in the slow, painful way trauma heals when you're finally safe enough to feel it.
That night, in federal maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado, Derek Bancroft sat in protective custody
because even hardened murderers despised men who killed women and children. He had 23 hours of solitary per day, 1 hour of exercise in a cage, no contact with other inmates who'd made it clear he wouldn't survive general population. He spent his days writing appeals that would go nowhere, spent his nights staring at concrete walls, spent every waking moment knowing he'd lost everything: freedom, money, reputation, future. Because an 8-year-old child had been smarter and braver than he'd calculated. And somewhere in Denver, that same child slept peacefully for the first time in 9 months, wrapped in her mother's arms, surrounded by people who'd promised to protect her, and actually kept that promise. This story isn't really about bikers or serial killers or frozen mountains in Colorado. It's about a little girl who had every reason to freeze in fear, but chose to run instead. It's about a mother who survived 19 months of torture by teaching her daughter to be brave when nobody else would help. It's about men who society feared discovering they had the power to protect the powerless. And it's about the simple, revolutionary truth that sometimes the person with the least power holds the key to saving everyone else. There are Elenas everywhere, women trapped in relationships that look normal from outside, women whose abusers are respected businessmen and church deacons and city council members, women who try to ask for help and get told there's no evidence, or he seems like a good guy, or maybe you're overreacting. There are Mayas everywhere, children watching their mothers suffer, children who know something's wrong but don't know who to trust because every adult they've asked has failed them. And if you're reading this, if Maya's story reached you, then maybe you're the person who can help. Maybe you're the neighbor who hears screaming and calls police and doesn't accept everything's fine as an answer. Maybe you're the officer who believes the victim over the charming abuser. Maybe you're the friend who offers a couch and doesn't ask questions. Maybe you're the stranger who sees a barefoot child running through snow and stops to help instead of driving past. You don't need a leather vest or a motorcycle or a brotherhood of 156. You just need to care enough to act when you see wrong. Pay attention. Listen when someone says they're afraid. Believe victims even when abusers are convincing. Ask uncomfortable questions. Be the person who doesn't walk away. Stand in the gap between a victim and the system failing them. Because Maya proved something that frozen January night when she ran barefoot through snow with her mother's bracelet clutched in her fist. She proved that miracles don't always come from heaven. Sometimes they come from a child with purple pajamas and the courage to whisper 6 impossible words to a stranger. "Mommy's in the box. Please help." And sometimes, if you're brave enough to listen, you become the miracle someone else desperately needs. Elena and Maya Rodriguez are alive today because one little girl refused to be silent, and one group of bikers refused to walk away. Derek Bancroft will die in prison because evil doesn't win when good people act. And somewhere right now, another child is watching their mother suffer, wondering if anyone will help. Be the answer to that question. Be the family that catches them when they fall. Be the reason someone survives instead of becoming another statistic. Because the world needs more people who run toward danger instead of away from it. More people who keep promises instead of breaking them. More people who see a barefoot child in the snow and think that's someone's baby who needs help, instead of that's someone else's problem. Maya was 8 years old, weighed 60 pounds, and saved her mother's life because she believed protectors still existed. She was right. They do exist. They wear leather vests and carry badges and teach school and work hospitals and sit in courtrooms, and maybe, just maybe, they look exactly like you. This world breaks people every single day, but it also builds families in the most unlikely places, and sometimes those families are exactly what stands between death and survival, between silence and justice, between evil winning and good people refusing to let it. Maya and Elena are living proof that even in the darkest cold, even when every system fails, even when evil seems unstoppable, one person brave enough to run and one family fierce enough to answer can change absolutely everything.